Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Judge, you there?
I'm here.
All right, excellent. We all be. It's an honor to have on once again the one and only, the truly beyond category, the Honorable Judge Joe Brown, about to give us the rundown of what's happening in your town and beyond. How you doing tonight, Judge?
I'm well. I'm managing.
Okay, well, you say you was in a good mood. You just recently saw the third installment of the John Wick's franchise, and I just want to get your take on it.
John Wick Part 3 for War, or Parabellum. That's what that means in Latin. It was a great movie. It's probably got 3 times as much action in it as the first 2 do combined. I like lots of gratuitous violence. And there are some clips out there with Keanu Reeves actually training with live ammunition on a range. And he's pretty good. And the one that they've got out there showing the most, Halle Berry is timing him because she's got a part in the movie too. For those who are interested, in Part 1, his main piece of hardware was a Heckler & Koch. That's an H&K P30 target model with a compensator on it. And in Part 2, he had a customized Glock 34, both of them in 9mm, and also a Benelli M4 / actually M1014, which is the military semi-auto 12-gauge shotgun. And he also had a custom M4 that he used in there. So in this one, he's got another M4 workup, which is in 9mm. It's a carbine set up for pistol caliber ammo. He's also got a Benelli M3, which is another 12-gauge shotgun, which is interesting because it can be worked as either a semi-auto or as a pump. The pistol he's using in this one is an ATI 2011, which is a takeoff on the old 1911 45 ACP, but this one's a 9mm, and it holds a 23-shot magazine plus one in the chamber for a nice round 24. He doesn't have to change mags as much, and Halle Berry has got one of the new SIG 365s and 9mm. It's very compact. It's a carry pistol. It holds between 10 and 12 rounds, depending upon which magazine you use in it, and one in the chamber. So it's the hot thing. I like it. And getting back to the movie, it's a real good movie. Talks about manhood and standing up for duty and what you have to do and principle. So I liked it for that reason too. It's a must-see for somebody that's into things that are not going to bore
you. Okay. So you think it's better than Avengers: The Endgame or any of the superhero movies that came out?
Oh, yes. Avengers: The Endgame was too sissified. They had too many gay moments in there.
I know they've been trying to make a lot of, superhero movies be more, I guess, either feminized or serve that gay agenda. Like they're making a lot of
gay and feminized.
Like,
so, for example, what they've been doing to Thor is a character. Now, Thor is supposed to be the same entity as the Norse god who is to inherit from Odin.
Mm-hmm.
In Norse mythology, the gods are very, very, very long-lived, but they're not exactly immortal. They live and die.
Okay.
And Odin inherited from his father when his father died, and Thor is supposed to inherit from Odin when Odin dies. So in the movies, this is not really a spoiler. They've got Thor, the character, getting basically overwhelmed and subject to the whim of a Valkyrie, who is supposed to, in Norse mythology, be under Thor. Mm-hmm. And then him surrendering the high throne of Asgard after Odin has passed on and giving it to a woman to rule as queen of Asgard, which, you know, it's just out of hand. And the other thing on Thor, in the comic books, they've got Thor converted to a woman, which is, Thor is not a woman. That's the Norse thunder god with Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor. So they've taken some liberties. And in the movie, I won't give you a spoiler on it, but on Avengers Endgame, they got all of the heroes crying at one point, and misty-eyed or red-eyed, and tears running down their faces and all this other stuff. It's just really feminized. And Ant-Man, they've got bending over, sticking his butt up in the air and saying, give it a shot, and somebody thumping him on the butt, you know, that kind of thing. So where are they going with this?
Oh, man.
You know, I grew up in L.A. Mm-hmm. I saw this stuff developing. I was out there for 15 years during this show, but you don't see as much gayness walking around on the street unless you're in L.A. and you're in what they call the boys club area, which is a certain stretch of Santa Monica Boulevard. Mm-hmm. It is a main street, so people often have to pass down that street, but other than there, you don't see that much gay in 2 or 3 or 4 months, unless maybe you're in D.C. or Atlanta. And D.C. has gotten worse than Atlanta in that respect. I mean, it's their right to do what they want to do in their bedrooms, but it's just kind of crazy to have sex practices defining a new class of people entitled to certain protections, not to practice it, since you can't have sex out in public, but to protect basically a philosophical thing. See, people ought to read stuff like 1984 by Orwell or Animal Farm by Orwell. And in Animal Farm, which was written 65 years ago, they've got a parallel to what's happening with this LGBT thing. It's like all of the animals in the barnyard are equal, except it develops that the pigs wind up being more equal than anything else. And that's kind of like them. They seem to have this impression that nobody is supposed to criticize anything they do or anything they want. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, between them and the feminists, they have co-opted the methodology of the German Nazis. It used to be that the far left was the protector of individual rights and free speech. But nowadays, what is the far left has gotten extremely oppressive and tries to basically kill the exercise of free speech by anybody but themselves. And they have the media telling tales about how widespread and how accepted they are, which they're not. But propaganda that you get from the media, which is based on the Nazi model, tell a lie one time, it's a lie, tell it 1,000 times, it becomes the truth. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get everybody to believe it, anybody to believe it. And their lie told long and loud by the media, like in the movie Avengers Endgame, is that everybody's accepted that, and they haven't. And it's one thing about what somebody does in the privacy of their bedroom, that's their business. But when you want to bring it into somebody else's living room, that's something else again. But enough on that. That's just the ongoing thing that is the hidden, I guess it's pink dressed bunny rabbit in the room in politics these days. Too many of the people that are running for high office are involved, even if they aren't out of the closet. You know, they're in the closet and they're down low. So, like, for example, when you had that government shutdown, while all that confusion was going on quietly behind the scenes in many committee meetings, you had, guess what? A lot of business being conducted by both parties to further the gay agenda, which they did quietly. Nobody paying attention to that, but people paying attention to the government shutdown. So California's gotten bad. They have a thing out there about sex education now, starting in the third grade. It's subjects of how, if a girl wants to go deal with trying to be a lesbian, how to give cunnilingus appropriately. And if it's a boy, if he's contemplating accepting somebody's offer, what lubricants he should use for sodomy, and how to get sex toys and what they do, which is you're teaching this to elementary and junior high school kids. And if your parents don't allow it, how you can use cucumbers or bananas to substitute. I mean, that's what they're doing with this curriculum. It's gotten, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And then they got a thing where they're claiming, like Orange County, which is now very far to the left, but used to be far to the right. It now says that any parent that tries to keep the child from attending such classes will be charged with assisting truancy. And they're citing Kamala Harris as precedent for locking up all those people in the Bay Area, that's San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley, and Richmond, for the truancies of their children. So it's gotten a bit far out of hand.
So basically, like, parents have no say in how their kids are being taught. I mean,
well, yeah, but the parents need to just tell them to go to hell. That's not going to happen. I mean, it is controlled by a school board, and I understand, and this is what I'm saying about assuming the methodology of the Nazis. You always were able to opt out if you didn't want your children, for whatever reason, attending a sex education class. Mm-hmm. But this one, because it's the opposite thing, they say it's necessary to promote peaceful existence in the population and in public and in society. You have to learn the gay methodology, which, you know, to me, that's way far out. I saw a bootleg DVD that they had. Well, it wasn't bootleg. A teacher got a copy and gave it to some parents because she was concerned. And it says in there, and it's an animation, my big brother likes to dance. He has fun. My big brother likes to dress up like a girl. He has fun. My big brother likes to dress up like a girl and go to nightclubs and dance, and he has fun. He also likes to fool other boys into thinking he's a girl. Now, that'll get somebody killed, but they're just showing this to third grade students.
Wow, that's insane. So you got people in so-called authority positions abusing their power, it seems, and being bullies, try to force this on people's kids.
Yes. And see, the kids, you know, I mean, whether you're black or white, you were subject to the influence of Chinese, African, South American. You were subject to the influence of movies. And all over the world, for a long time, young males and females guided what they did based on what they saw in the movies. And now they're showing movies that have a lifestyle like that to kids starting in early elementary school, going all the way through high school. So that's a 9-10 year period they'll be looking at this stuff.
Wow.
And it's supposed to make it all right. but that's not what is appropriate. It's like the rainbow is interesting. They used to say there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Well, with this one, there's nothing but oblivion because Mother Nature just is hanging out there grinning and saying, I'm Mother Nature, but I sure as hell can be a bitch. And what I might deliver is extinction. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it's their right to do whatever in the hell they want to do, but it's our right to say, no, you can't teach this to our children. And since you don't have children unless you're sneaking, or you buy, is not a problem you seem to worry about. So it's not above what they comment. Well, let me strike that and go back. They're using black people as kind of guinea pigs. Last Christmas before last, I forget which, Macy's had some commercials and they showed three children in these stylish pajamas, all identical, and a man and a woman, and obviously it's supposed to be a happy family. Mm-hmm. They showed another man and a woman, white in the first instance, with two children. They're all four of them a family in these same pajamas. And then they showed a black man and a white man, obviously a gay couple with three kids of different races, all in these pajamas. And then they showed a single black woman with 4 or 5 kids in these pajamas and another single black woman with 3 kids in these pajamas. So in other words, there was no depiction of a black family in there. There is one that you've seen on Twitter. It's about baby in the bath that they're showing in elementary schools, and it's a cute little first, second grade thing or kindergarten thing. And there's a little baby, and his mom and dad are shampooing, or her mom and dad are shampooing its hair, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have the baby sitting there splashing, and another baby slides into the bathtub, and the little ditty is going along, baby in the bath. And this time, there is a black male with another black male, and they are washing this baby's hair. 2 men, gay. And then they've got a black girl in the bathtub now, and then there's a black female and another black female. In other words, a black lesbian couple washing the baby's hair. And then they've got a Hispanic guy who's washing this kid's hair all by himself. In other words, they got the Spanish guy being the effective male head of household single parent, which is a conscientious thing. They've got white family being a family, and then they got a gay black couple and a lesbian black couple. See, that's just, you see what they're doing in terms of the imagery? Mm-hmm. Now, I know in terms of imagery, when I was coming up in the 60s, black people had a real problem. They were ashamed of themselves. They have become that way again. But we kind of invented I'm black and I'm proud. Not James Brown, but people did. Just James Brown just co-opted it when he came out with Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Right. After doing that Rocky movie with Stallone in the late 60s. But it was I'm black and I'm proud, and we got to saying, okay, be proud of what you are, not ashamed, even though all of the imagery that we got out there was white-oriented, except for very, very few things. So nowadays you see the gay crowd pushing gung-ho to push their agenda, but yet they're pushing the tranny thing, and basically the tranny thing is a supersized edition of what black folks had wrong with them up until the late 60s, which was shame. They are glorified being so ashamed of what they are and so full of self-hate that they want to switch genders. Mm. And it's like, goodness, you're really screwed up. That's as bad as that sick, dead thing, Michael Jackson, who was so ashamed of being black, he did so much surgery on himself, or had it done on himself, that he wound up getting his necrotic nose amputated and wound up looking like a Pokemon cartoon figure.
Judge, you've been
And got
consistent
his
on that.
melanin cells destroyed by laser.
One thing, Judge, you have been consistent on the Michael Jackson situation. I got to give you a props on that. You have not changed your tune. People try to bully you online. People try to make you submit to their point of view. You've been consistent on that Michael Jackson point.
Yeah, it's sickness. Well, see, they pushed Michael Jackson as an early thing. So for all of those years, they had all of these young male blacks running around trying to act like a sissy rather than act like a man.
Mm.
And you got their mothers coming to these Michael Jackson movies before and after he croaked. And they had their sons with flooding high tight pants and white socks and one glove on, trying to look like Michael Jackson. And then see if their sons had been turned over to Michael Jackson, he would have been doing that pedophile stuff on them. Oh, Michael Jackson's not a pedophile. They couldn't prove it in court. Yeah, but right after he got loose on that first case, he's out there under a black umbrella in the rain talking about he doesn't see anything wrong with being naked in a bed with a 10-year-old boy who he's not related to trying to show love. So that's pedophilia.
Let's say for the I wasn't there, but is that not the agenda? What they're pushing with this man boy love stuff? Like they trying to make pedophilia normal now among
they
other
are.
masses.
That's HR. What used to be HR 2282, which is up right now. They're trying to get that passed, and the language they're trying to include in that is descriptive is exactly the same as I would get back on a psychiatric report after I had sent convicted child molester or convicted child rapist over for an evaluation before I sentenced them. So the same language the shrinks would use to describe this sicko who's raped a child or molested a child, they would take that, they want to put that same language in as a protected class. And then that's part of that gay agenda of 1972, which is what? That's 47 years old, where they had recommended state action, either number 5 or number 7, which is remove age as a factor in sexual consent. That's pedophilia. A lot of the people that are supporters of LGBT don't even know that, but LGBT and pedophiles have been running along for a long time with that NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association, which the FBI drove underground.
What about institution older than that one? What about like the Boy Scouts of America or the Catholic Church? I mean, why hasn't they been disbanded?
The Boy Scouts of America, considering its ubiquity, it was in Britain, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, and other English-speaking places around the world. If you're talking about going on a 100-year period, you're going to have, of course, some examples of some sickos who have snuck in. That wasn't widespread. But some years ago, the Boy Scouts really went off the deep end when they started saying it's all right to have openly gay scoutmasters. Like, what time is that? That invites the pedophiles in. And then they switched up just a couple of years ago, so now girls can be Boy Scouts. So, like, what gives here? You have Girl Scouts, you have Brownies, you have Campfire Girls, and now they got to invade and take over Boy Scouting? And see, I was a Scoutmaster for 15 years. And there's no way in hell that a Scoutmaster male that you need to get these boys properly acculturated and socialized. There's no way he needs to be out in the wilderness for a week by himself with a bunch of little girls in this group with the boys. That is a recipe for a disaster. But see, what they've done is they have toned down what the boys do, so they got it now, instead of what the boys used to do, is what the girls do in the Girl Scouts and Campfire Girls, and that just promotes the sissification of the masculine population. And then it's you want to teach boys certain things that you don't need girls around, because it's not pro girls. It's not anti them, but it's, you know, the girls have their little classes where they get taught about when they get on their menses and everything, and they exclude the boys, and the boys wonder what they're talking about. But, you know, you can't have a class for the boys, or you can't have a program for the boys. So it's sick. Catholic Church, I mean, if you go to a Renaissance revival thing, or you go to an art museum and you see all of the classic paintings by Leonardo da Vinci and not Machiavelli. Michelangelo, yeah. And you see the Sistine Chapel. Well, in these Catholic churches, for a long time, they didn't have the pews like you see now. The rich folk brought in stools, and what they had was straw on the floor. People would sit on the floor. But if you can imagine the candlelight flickering after dark, and you're looking up at a ceiling, and you're looking down, and you see some monks with their robes laying flat on their backs, with the robe flipped up, looking at the light flickering off of these little naked cherubs and everything up there, and all these boys with these gay poses that they have in this Renaissance artwork. It's a bunch of monks jacking off or masturbating while they're looking at these pictures and these paintings with the light flickering off of them.
Wow.
That's pornography. It dawned on me. I was in the New York Museum of Art, and my now ex-wife was looking around, and I was sitting there in the Renaissance section. I said, oh, man, I get it now. This is pornography. This is homosexual, pedophilic pornography. Have you ever noticed how these paintings have all these little naked boys with their penises out, you know, fluttering around, you know, as part of the painting? See, that's what that was. Or at least that's my deduction.
I don't know you too far off. I mean, you look at the early days of the church. I mean, they said they were having orgies up in the church, the nuns and the priests. And I don't think you're too far off from what you're saying. I can see you making that deduction.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the paintings, it always dawned on, it always struck me, so why they got all these naked children in these pictures?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess you always had erotic art.
Sitting there, and it dawned on me, that's why they got all those naked boys up in there. This is pedophilic pornography.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean...
Next time you look at some of Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci's or all of the famous Renaissance painters, look at some of their artwork. Look at all of these naked little boy cherubs they've got up in there. Or even the one Michelangelo did, where they've got God up there touching Adam, and Adam's dick is hanging out, you know, or a little bitty dick, you know, stuck out.
Well, Joe, let me ask you, is homosexuality a gateway to pedophilia?
Most of the bad pedophilia is gay.
Okay.
There is heterosexual pedophilia, where old men deal with children, female children. But the worst exemplars are where you've got grown males dealing with male children. I think that's more prevalent if I go by what I wound up having to sentence.
And how will you define a pedophile? Is a person a pedophile if they have sex with a younger female who could menstruate, you know, like this menstrual cycle? Do they make you a pedophile?
I don't know if it's got anything to do with minstrels. Well, you're talking about who's old enough to have
Yeah. What's the
In other words, she's sexually mature. Well,
right?
I remember back in January 1991, this guy had been convicted.
Mm-hmm.
A nurse turned him in. Juvenile court didn't, but it should, because what happened is the birth certificate showed that the girl who was 2 or 3 weeks shy of her 13th birthday gave birth to a child and named this guy as the daddy, and he came down and signed the birth certificate. So he's 28 years old getting a 12-year-old pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going off on it. So testifying in his behalf is the mother of the child. And she sits up there and said, my friend girls were getting all on my case, Your Honor, because I had a grown woman at my house who wasn't getting a check. So I invited this guy, the defendant, to go stay over at my house so he could get my daughter pregnant so we could get another check in the house. So by the time she got through, I had her placed under arrest for aiding and abetting especially aggravated rape.
Wow.
And I set a $500,000 bond on it. I'm going to lose my children. Good. And I had my clerk call the Department of Human Services, and I instructed them to go see about retrieving these children. Wow. They needed to be placed in a foster home.
Wow.
And he was up there crying with snot running out his nose, really nasty. I had to bring in the janitorial staff to clean up the mess. He was crying about what did he do wrong. His mother wasn't but 12 when she had his big brother and 14 when she had him, so what did he do wrong? It's like sick. That was in our community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a relative, like, I found this interesting. I mean, I had a relative who was, he was 28 when he married his wife who was 14 at the time, and they're still together. He's in his 90s, she's in her 70s. Do you think there's like a different time, and how do you like look at it? Because
no, that's still sick.
Okay.
Sorry about talking to your relative.
I'm curious. I'm just curious.
That somebody 90 could be my big brother, you know?
Uh-huh.
I'm in my 70s, so you're talking about 90, you know, that's like a friend's big brother now if he's still breathing.
Yeah, he's still around, but he's still married, but I mean, I just thought that was interesting.
I know. What are you doing marrying a 14-year-old? What's wrong with you that you can't get a grown woman?
That's good.
Something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for talking about your kin, but that's...
you don't need to apologize. I just want to get your point of view on that. Cause I just think you hear stories like that all the time. Though I had a friend.
I know it, but it's sick. A lot of sick stuff used to go on. All kinds of stuff. Like when I first started practicing law 40-some years ago, and I'd get into these outer counties, get a case up there, you'd get in these families, and nobody's opening their mouth, but you look at the family, and then there's one very obviously different with a lot of white in them. And when you get to inquiring, you find out that mama was coming home from work when 5 white boys drunk were driving around in their Ford after a football game, spotted her walking, stopped, threw her off in the hedges, and raped her. So she doesn't know which one of the 5 is the daddy, but everybody in the family knows that it's one of those 5 white boys who raped her, who is the father of this child that looks like that. But they accept the child, you know, and they go on. Quite frankly, that would have been cause to go to war. To me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
I don't care when it was. Like my grandfather and one of his brothers, a great uncle of mine, had to leave Shreveport, Louisiana, because they murdered a deputy sheriff who had killed or helped they murdered two deputy sheriffs who were responsible for having one of their brothers lynched.
Wow.
Now, my grandfather went on and became a doctor, a physician, but, you know, he had to get on up.
Yeah, I heard Shreveport was a tough place. They even roughed up Sam Cooke when he tried to check into the Holiday Inn in Shreveport. They beat him up a little bit. The police did. They roughed him up.
Yeah, well, my grandfather and my great uncle murdered two deputy sheriffs in cold blood, shot them both right between the eyes at close range.
Wow, that's like some unforgiving Clint Eastwood stuff or OK Corral type of stuff.
Exactly.
That's like what white people be doing. Like, wow, they had some balls.
Yeah, and granddad lived to be 100-some years old.
Wow. So he got to change his identity, or he kept his last name and everything? He didn't change it?
Oh, yeah. He just left.
Wow.
He went to Mississippi, so he left me a journal, and it's interesting. His old lawyer gave it to me after when I was in my early 30s, and I ran into the old guy, and he said, your granddaddy named William Dorsey? I said, yeah. Dr. Dorsey? He said, yeah. He said, I got something for you.
Wow.
He left this for you in safekeeping for you. He knew you were around, and he said, you know, when he gets grown, if you see him, give it to him. So I told my mother she was still alive, and she said, I suspected something like that happened. Everybody in the family did, but they didn't talk about it.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to turn that into a movie or something? What are you going to do with the information, Judge?
I don't know.
It's like a hell of a story.
My grandfather and Alex Haley's grandfather practiced medicine together up in Jackson, Tennessee.
Wow.
They used one of the first black pharmacists. His granddaughter is Rita Porter around here. She's a retired school principal, real nice lady.
Mm-hmm.
And Rita Porter's also a descendant of this guy that is the subject of the Free State of Jones, Mississippi.
Okay.
If you've ever seen the movie.
Yeah, I've seen the movie.
It's interesting because it's this white boy who deserted from the Confederate Army. He set up some resistance. They set up a free state. They never could get the Union to cooperate with them, even though they were doing guerrilla tactics against the Confederate Army.
Mm-hmm.
And they were freeing black folk. So he, after the war, registered some to vote. They got armed and moved on to white folks, said they'll vote. He had a child by this former slave.
Mm.
And the movie fast forwarded to 1947 when this white man, or at least everybody thought he was a white man, was being prosecuted and tried for a felony for marrying a white woman. And the guy was the grandson of the person, the Free State of Jones, Mississippi. Jones was the guy's name. So this woman that I knew is a descendant.
Wow.
But it's interesting. They convicted him, sentenced him to 10 years in the state penitentiary down in Mississippi. But the Mississippi Supreme Court overturned the conviction. Basically, they manufactured a basis using Mississippi. Well, under Mississippi law, they had to manufacture a fictional basis to overturn the conviction. But what it was all about is they did not want the United States Supreme Court involved in this case. So they let him out of jail.
Wow.
The interesting thing, and they allude to it in the movie, is at that time, thanks to Robert Church's father, who had been the biggest plantation owner before and after the war in Mississippi, they had a set of statutes in Mississippi that allowed someone with no more than 1/4 known colored ancestry to be declared white if he had 2 white sponsors. and to the satisfaction of the judge, he looked white. That was on the books up until the 1930s, and that was a remark that he hadn't availed himself of. That had that been so, they couldn't have prosecuted him.
Wow.
There's all kinds of sickness going around in this. Tennessee's rule was no more than 1/8 colored ancestry. Oh, yeah. Louisiana was 1/16. Virginia 1/8, and Alabama was 1/4. Arkansas, I think it was 1/4.
Wow.
That's the reason they had that, was after the Civil War, a lot of these rich plantation owners found that their sons had been killed in the Civil War, so they had no heirs. And when you have no heirs, the property escheats to the state. In other words, the state would take it after you died. So they had sons, sometimes daughters, by their slave mistresses. So they would give it to somebody that was part kin. But then they had rules that would deprive those people of full rights to fee simple absolute property interest. So they sponsored this stuff. That is, Robert Church's grandfather sponsored stuff all around the South since he was a rich man, to have an avenue to get these children of slave mistresses declared to be white. Now, an interesting thing, those who are from Memphis may have heard of Boss Crump.
All right.
Boss Crump controlled Tennessee politics for decades, and thanks to him, since he relied upon a black bloc vote to get elected, blacks never had the vote stripped from them like they did in other places. But guess how Boss Crump got to Memphis? Robert Church's daddy got tired of white folk taking his son's property that he had bought for his son. So he paid for the person that became Boss Crump to come to Memphis to protect his son's interest. So Boss Crump became Boss Crump because he figured out the best way to do it was politically. So just about all black people in Memphis were Republican then, and they had an organization called the Lincoln Republicans. So they voted as a black bloc vote. Now, the funny thing is, if you went to or go to a Lincoln Republican meeting now, it's 100% white. And they are shocked to find out that it was some black people that started it.
Wow.
I know I went to one of the meetings just to check out the political scene. What are you doing here? I said, well, question is, what are you doing here? This is a black organization, huh? Well, I did that deliberately to shake some people up, and then I showed the charter that they had and who chartered it and how it was for black folks. So you got all these white folk in there, conservative, that don't like us, and they got an organization they're all very much behind and don't realize that black people started. Which is interesting. Right now, black folk act like the Democratic Party bought and bred them, whereas the Democrats used to be our worst enemies, and the Republicans are some kind of anathema, but actually we switched parties in there. So the Republicans were founded in the 1850s on the basis of freeing the slave and getting rid of slavery. The Democratic Party was founded much earlier, and part of their charter is to support, further, and expand the institution of slavery. And Hillary Clinton, back in the 60s, was a staunch Republican. She was chairwoman of the Young Republicans at her all-girls school, Wesley, and she participated in a whole lot of stuff around the country that was anti-black, including maintaining official segregation at the University of Illinois' Chicago campus, and out there on the picket lines supporting segregation with her parents when King came to Chicago in '67 to help protest the official segregation in the Chicago suburbs. Now, see, there's a difference, by the way, between segregation and integration.
Mm-hmm.
People keep saying integration ruined everything. Well, it wasn't integration the way it was actually played out. It was desegregation. For example, there's a water fountain that only, there are water fountains in a public building. Certain water fountains are restricted to white people and others are permitted to colored folk. And if white folk want to use the colored stuff or colored restroom because theirs is overfilled, the black folk are supposed to yield to them. Now, that's wrong. See, that's called segregation.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you, man. Got a couple of points you made. Wednesday will mark the actual bicentennial of Memphis founding. Memphis's birthday will be on Wednesday, May 22nd, 200 years in. What are your thoughts about, who are some, in your opinion, some of the most important events in Memphis history or some of the most important people we should know?
Doc Harrington got elected. H.T. Lockett filed a series of lawsuits that got University of Memphis desegregated, the high schools desegregated, the junior highs desegregated, the elementary schools desegregated, the park facilities desegregated. That's the late Judge H.T. Lockett. It's when A.W. Willis and Russell Sugarman, both late, they were attorneys. They got qualified to set up and have some influence in local elected offices. When Ben Hooks got pushed by H.T. Lockett and became the first black judge in the area since Reconstruction. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that come along like that. Those are the two I would say are most important. Harrington getting the first black elected mayor, 5 times elected, and H.T. Lockett filing those desegregation lawsuits.
So it's like now we're approaching, I believe, June the 8th. We're talking about the People's Convention that,
We need it because right now Memphis looks like a plantation. White people are only 19.1% of the registered voters in Memphis, but yet they are controlling everything. And we've got a bunch of damn fool colored folk off a plantation who insist on jumping 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time in a race, dividing the vote so somebody white like this clown Strickland can become mayor. Strickland is incompetent. And Memphis 3.0 is a ridiculous ripoff that they're setting aside to try and exploit black folk and take advantage of our reduced economic situation. There's plenty of money, but it does stuff like $42 million for this new movie theater downtown, which the city paid for, which private enterprises and private enterprise, if the governmental entity is financing it. Like that $35 million thing down there, the Beale Street Landing that they built for this guy to operate the gift shop, bar, and grill and a giant catfish out there. And the deal is, if they build the stuff for you, you get to run it. You give them 4% of your net profit, if any. If not, you nothing. And $1 cash rent up the front for the year. Now, all that money could have been spent on developing black enterprise. And there's a lot more than that. That corner, it used to be over there in the 80s when you went over the A.W. Willis Bridge to the Mud Island housing development. There was a right angle corner and a stop sign to show you about the corruption. The city of Memphis sold that stop sign, that corner, to a developer for $14,600, and less than 90 days later, he sold it back to the city for $6.8 million. That was a ripoff. Another ripoff is selling that park down there in front of that medical center complex with Nathan Bedford Forrest's statue on it to somebody on the county commission. I won't mention his name at the moment. For $2,500, and then selling the same person who's on the county commission that park down here on the bluff where they had Jeff Davis's statue for $2,500, and the property is worth somewhere, the two combined is worth somewhere between $20 and $25 million, and he got it for $5,000. Hell, I'd have written a check, but see, there was no bid. But see, that's the kind of corruption that goes on.
Yeah, because my understanding, talking to people tonight, they were saying that the Bill Street Landing thing is falling apart, like it needs repair. Like they did a shoddy job of building it, and you said it cost $35 million.
Yeah. How many black entrepreneurs could have been helped to get a business going with $35 million of taxpayers' money?
Yeah, but like we get back to what our earlier conversation is all about: real estate and construction down here. Like the people, like the Turleys and stuff like that.
Memphis.
Yeah,
big money in Memphis. There's 6 things, but only 5 of them are of immediate concern. That's real estate acquisition, management and development, construction and construction material supply. The thing is getting hold of some properties that you have connived to get cheaply. You develop and manage them, and what you do is you then go down and bribe some of the city council members, which happens all the time, until they grant a zoning variance. And I tell you, every single damn zoning variance that has been granted by the city council for 35 years that I can go back, hell, I know is subject to corruption and bribery. And they used to cover it by cracking down on adult entertainment. Now they just do it more quietly and don't say anything, and they all get paid off for doing it. I'll tell you about that in a second. But see, when they do that, that destroys any coherent city planning. It disrupts neighborhoods where you have some gentrified and then you have an overflow. So what do you do with that? You go take a settled but decent neighborhood and you break that up, put the low and moderate income and Section 8 housing in that area or close to it. The crime rate goes up astronomically. That screws that neighborhood and everybody moves out from that. So you get people displaced by gentrification, and then 20 years later, you do more gentrification and move them out, and you keep exploiting it. And instead of somebody sitting down and making a coherent city development plan and sticking to it, you have these zoning variances so people can do it. And the way they bribe these people down on the city council is many of them, and on the county commission at one time, are deacons or officials in a church. So what happens is on Pastor's Appreciation Day, there's a large anonymous envelope full of cash that's addressed to deacon or elder or whatever it may be, so-and-so. Not elder, that's Church of God in Christ for preacher, but, you know, somebody in the church, and that's their bribe and payoff. Or you have a business, so you get a big order for your product and a check for it from the city, but you don't have to deliver anything. That's your payoff. And like our county mayor, and see, the immorality thing, it is encouraged for lawyers to do pro bono work. In other words, free work for things that are really important, constitutional matters and such. So we've got the current mayor, he and his county mayor, he and his wife were law professors, so they had jobs and paychecks, and those bastards didn't do one damn pro bono case between them in the 10 or 12 years they've been out here at the University of Memphis Law School. And you elect somebody whose whole history in government is pushing LGBT stuff, and that's who you elect. He doesn't have an agenda for us. We get nothing out of it. We got this little young lesbian girl running for mayor here. That's her business, but she doesn't have a program, and all she's saying is it's time for a change, and when I get in, I will discover what needs to be done. Oh, hell. trying to emulate what happened in Chicago, which, by the way, that thing about electing that black lesbian in Chicago, that was the lowest voting turnout in 70 years for a mayor's race.
Mm-hmm.
Runoff or otherwise. They have almost 6 million registered voters in the Chicago area, and somewhere around 400,000+ turned out to vote.
Wow. But you still need that.
Crowd turned out in mass.
Well, yeah, she still had access to the black vote. They turned out for her too, for that, Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, it was a black female. It was a black lesbian, and her opponent was a black female Democratic Party activist. In other words, everybody says, hell, there's nobody running. But the gay community turned out in mass to lend their support to their member, and she got elected. That's political power. That's their right. More power to them.
Yeah, but
somebody's trying to do that here, and then the thing, again, you got this ass down there, Strickland, is in the mayor's office. He needs to be turned out. He's incompetent. It is not representative of the city, but yet you got all these folks that want to dive in the mayor's race. So Doc Harrington said he's got in because he said only I can narrow and winnow this stuff out, win this race, at least for one term, to straighten out this corruption and stupidity.
I mean, but he had 5 terms, though, to do that, I thought. He had 5
Well, he did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and when Doc was in, the streets were fixed. There weren't potholes. AC got in and potholes. Strickland got in and there are craters in the damn street. When AC got in, he inherited a situation where Doc left it where if you're the director of police and there are cops that get out of line with anything questionable and you have dealt with it, then you get dealt with. You'll find you're fired by the time you get home. You'll read about it or you will hear about it or look at it on television. And he straightened it up. And I saw some stuff toward the end of his service where little old ladies had trays with coffee and donuts on it and then meet the cops out at the stop sign and give it to them. Say, hi, how are you? Police community relations were improved. It's like, what's that Clint Eastwood movie where he was the gunny sergeant or the recon platoon for the Marines, Pork Chop Hill or something like that. Their problem as a unit is they lack leadership and their morale was shit. So Clint Eastwood came in and exercised efficient leadership. The morale improved. They got a purpose and they got direction, and they became a crack unit. That's what was happening with the Memphis Police Department. The mayor was saying, Director, you sit at my pleasure. You won't be sitting if I get displeased, so make sure damn sure I don't get displeased. So the police were held in check and accountable. AC got in, tried to please everybody. I know him, a friend of mine, but it doesn't work that way. You got to, you want to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs. So he didn't. And the police and the firemen and the sanitation workers and all the city workers are real upset because their pension plan went to hell. But the money that was supposed to go to the pension plan went to pay for that building that the city gave an airline that hadn't even incorporated. It was supposed to come here that didn't. That was $28 million. There was that money spent for the theater in the Peabody. That was 30-some million. There was the $35 million for that that Beale Street landing. There was the $85 million pyramid that they gave away to Bass Pro for nothing, $1 a year, so they could hire 126 employees, and they've got the worst equal employment record in the country, one of the worst. And if you go out to their center on Sycamore on I-40, they've got exactly 2 employees out there. One's a janitor and the other one's the maid.
Like, how can you do that? I mean, how can these people, I don't know who's running there.
There's some crooked folk. Harold Collins is a crook.
Like, how can you live with yourself?
They indicted. See, Harold Collins got indicted along with a preacher at Mississippi Boulevard for stealing millions of dollars of money. The civil case got dismissed because the money was allegedly in some unknown country in Africa.
Okay.
And they would not be able to prove their case. And Amy Wyrick, with her crooked behind, did not prosecute her driving Miss Daisy driver, Harold Collins, who drives for her.
Mm.
And there's another crooked thing. They've got Do the Right Thing, WRITE, which is supposed to be a black-oriented program. So Harold Collins got the money through the city to fund the damn thing, and he makes Amy Wyrick the acting director.
Wow.
And by the way, Amy Wyrick has a unique distinction. Several law reviews at major law schools and some other people writing books researching the subject note that she personally has had more findings against her of prosecutorial misconduct than any DA's office in the country collectively has had over a 50-year period. Another thing, the Department of Justice notes that whereas the arrest for simple possession of marijuana in Memphis run about equal between whites and blacks, 95% of the people that wind up getting found guilty or plead guilty are black. And guess what? They get the stiffest sentence for simple possession of marijuana in the entirety of the United States of America. This juvenile court we've got down here with these jerk clowns, these kangaroos, have been administering maljustice for years. And the Justice Department calls them the most racist and corrupt organization and entity they've ever investigated, ever, in the whole country. And they're still operating la-da-da, skimming money and putting it into a sequestered bank account that used to be worked through First Tennessee. And a number of people have been using public funds for collateral and security for home loans, car loans, personal finance, and now for mass campaign loans, for campaign financing. And nobody's gone to jail. We had a colored U.S. attorney who was trying to get a job, permanent lifetime job as a federal judge. He abstained from prosecuting all of these people that should have been prosecuted when he was in under Obama Tang, another sorry, useless somebody who is not one of us, richest person ever to sit in the White House, and not Trump, it's Obama. And he did nothing, and he, on the promise that he would be made a federal judge, he wasted his whole tenure in office as U.S. attorney, did nothing, and then as soon as Trump got elected, within several weeks, they had withdrawn his name and had some white guy approved. A nondescript, nothing down there, with due respect, I guess I should say, even though I'm not practicing anymore. And my law license is in a medical disability condition. And thankfully it is, because you have no idea how many complaints I get for talking about these folk. But they can't do anything because my license is in that state.
Now, somebody told me about that black lawyer who wanted to be a federal judge. Somebody told me he'll be a great candidate for mayor of Memphis.
Yeah. Shit. Excuse my language.
Well, Judge,
goddamn break. We got these ballless, spineless, gutless, dick cut off boys that want to go be our leaders all across the country. We've got 11,000 elected black officials, and probably 10 of them have any conscientiousness or any guts. The rest of them are pushing the LGBT agenda because they bend over and drop their boxes to their ankles themselves, or they like to sit down and munch a fur burger. And they got one, too, if they haven't shaved.
Okay, I'm getting
house Negroes.
Judge, I'm trying to figure this out. I talked to older people, younger people, people, whole opposite. It's like there is a lack of leadership. Where is where are the people that were trained by the so-called leadership we have today? I don't see. I mean,
There isn't any.
but what about Heritage? Why Heritage don't have anybody? I mean, I'm just
People
curious.
that got trained by the last leaders are my age, in our 70s, 60s. And there's some conscientious young folk like you. But you don't have anybody teaching you. That's why I'm opening my mouth and talking like I do, because it's like I'm going to be dead anyway. There's not much these fools can do to me except try to kill me, which they've already done, literally trying a time or two.
Mm.
And they paid for it. We won't go into
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir.
But we need some passing of the torch, but there's nobody to pass it to. I promise you, from the millennials on down, to too damn passive. I get asked by 19, 22-year-olds and 21-year-olds, Judge, we're having these problems on campus, man. Judge, what should we do? Why the hell are you asking an old man? You should be taking care of this. Don't you have any ideas? You should be scaring the hell out of soul folks. Saying, God, these kids are so radical. When hell, we look at you like, goddamn, don't you have any backbone? Stand up for yourself.
Mm. I don't know. I think about what your grandfather, what your relatives did to avenge the death of their loved one. And you talk about, you see what happened in Texas last week with the lady Pamela Turner and the cop and all these things. Like Eric Gardner, the commander of the New York Police Department, said that his death was not a big deal. And black folks keep on saying why they keep on killing us. Do we need to fight back? I mean, Malcolm X's birthday was yesterday, and he was the advocate of self-defense.
That's what the Panther Party was about. That's what Malcolm X was advocating. That's what Huey P. Newton was talking about. That's what H. Rap Brown was talking about. That's what everybody on a campus in a BSU in the 60s was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
When they took over a building, they didn't get on their damn knees praying to Jesus. They took in rifles.
So do we need to get back to that?
Yes.
Because I talk to people with grandchildren. They worry about the future of their grandchildren. Like these people who...
Goddamn, you see, we worry too much about surviving.
Right.
That's like a goddamn cattle thing. And we were called two-legged cattle, livestock.
Right.
You're talking about a herd of cows.
Mm-hmm.
Every damn one of the cows in that herd is going to wind up a hamburger or a steak or a rump roast or something. But the herd will survive, and that's what happens. You take lions, and they aren't worried about surviving other than as a generic thing. They do their thing. That's what we need to become. See, we are the apex. Humans are the apex predator on the planet Earth. If they ever had a real live Jurassic Park and came up with some real T-Rexes resurrected, and they escape, well, guess what? They'd probably be on the endangered species list because the planetary apex predator, us, would kill them off.
Mm.
And when you have something like that, we don't have any need to act like damn farm animals that you eat. But that's what we've been doing. We've been acting as a people like horses and cows and pigs and sheep and goats and ducks and damn chickens.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for somebody to give us something. Like reparations is not a bad idea. The practicality of effectuating it is almost impossible. But the idea that so many black people are running around now thinking it's all right if everything would be all right if we got reparations. Crap. We would soon be parted of it. Second thing, to give an adequate amount for reparations, the United States does not have that kind of gross national income to be able to afford it. And then the president can't order it. It's got to start as an appropriations bill in the House and pass through the Senate and then get signed by a president. Or if he vetoes it, the veto overridden by a 2/3 majority in each house, which is not going to happen. But we want somebody to give us something. fine if we get it, but the bottom line is we need to stop looking at our situation as something somebody needs to let us have, and something about how the black man is survived in America. Bunch of damn cows in a herd.
It's like we got to take what we want. Like Malcolm said, by any means necessary, or nobody can give you no freedom. You got to take your freedom. So why are we afraid to take it?
I'd modified it, not by any means necessary, because some of the means are so low down that you reduce yourself by doing it. But that Malcolm never made 40 years old. He was 39, and there's a remarkable thing like being a human. There are two critical stages in the adult development of an adult.
Mm-hmm.
That's from 15 to 25, when you know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing.
Right.
And 1 hour after you turn 26, you'll realize it. And the next one is what happens when you hit that 40-year-old mark. All of a sudden it starts clicking, and stuff you didn't comprehend, didn't see, starts occurring to you that did not occur to you when you were 39, 37, 36.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about John Brown, who also was born in May and a Taurus? I mean, he was all about the action.
John Brown was a cool white boy.
But he had time to think about it, right? I mean, he said, this ain't going to change unless we do something. We got to kill some people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you got to have some blood. There will be blood.
Exactly. And look what the white boys did. They
Civil
didn't
War.
like the idea of ending slavery, so they seceded. They had the Confederacy, and the Union had to go in and whip that ass.
Let me ask you this, just like,
And wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the war, 1/3 of the Union Army was black. And then get this. This is how bad things have gotten since, in 157 years since, 159 years since.
Mm-hmm.
General Grant, before he became president, noted that he had the whole Union Army tested for literacy. And he discovered that the only units in the whole Union Army that were completely literate were black. And then he says at first he was startled, but then it turned out not to be surprising, because he said you never saw a black, well, he said colored, soldier without a book and something to practice his writing on. And whereas white soldiers didn't bathe, were dirty, smelly, had disease problems because of that, and were always getting drunk, black troops were always using their spare time to read and improve their minds. Now, what the hell happened between then and now?
Oh, yeah. Well, TV won. The TV.
And what is the TV doing? It's glorifying dysfunction.
Yeah.
Many kids for the last century have based their conceptualization of what things ought to be like on the basis on what they have seen in the movies or on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And what is this dysfunction that they get on TV rammed down their throats, where, yeah, man, I got to be a gangster. Man, you little punk, you ain't going to be any damn gangster. You don't have the heart for it. Oh, yeah, man, it's all about pimping. Why the hell would you want to be a pimp? A pimp is one of the lowest, scurviest, most scumbag, slimy things on the planet's surface. Up until recently, a pimp in the penitentiary wound up sucking everybody's dick.
Wow.
The only thing lower on the totem pole than a pimp in a penitentiary was a pedophile. And then everybody fucked him, screwed him.
Wow.
And all that, man, you got to do time, man, so you understand being a man. See, I got a friend, lady that I've known for years, that is a director down here at CDC, Center for Disease Control, out of Atlanta. And she says that if anybody's been in jail for 18 months, there's a 90-some% probability that they've had at least 4 or 5 involuntary homosexual contacts, if not many more, on a voluntary basis. So these dudes get in the penitentiary and get that butt beat out.
But do you think they should separate populations, or separate the
No, I'm
homosexuals
talking
from the
about
other?
everybody in there. They
Mm-hmm.
like one client told me back, what is it? 40 years ago, 1980, almost 40 years ago, I had to interview this guy. My law partner had died, got shot to death.
Mm.
He'd been working on a big dope case where most of the people involved wound up dead, either the witnesses, the police, many police being defendants.
Wow.
And I had the only two clients out of the 40-some defendants who didn't wind up dead and having their cases abated by death. So anyway,
Wow.
what just went down was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff where 40-some years ago, I inherited one of his clients who was up in the penitentiary, and I had to file with the Court of Appeals permission to file a late appeal, so I got to go up there and talk to him. So he says, Lawyer Brown, man, it's like this, man. Like up here in the penitentiary, man, we got everything, man, we need, man. We got a thing going on. Only thing that we miss, man, is some soft booties. So, like, yeah, man, we got to girl some of these dudes out, man. People up in here like me, man, doing life a long time, man. We get these short terms, man. We girl them out. See, they're going to be wearing skirt minis. See them bitches over there, man, in black with them micro minis on, man, and all that long weave in their heads, man. And them sandals on, man. We be busting that booty out, man. And see over there. I said, y'all going to ask you about that. What is this with this dude with his pants hung off his butt? Man, that's like a sign, man. It's like, see, we girl and dude out, man.
Mm.
See, them trees over there, when the guards ain't around, man, we just bend him down, pull him down, and get down, man. When he get on the cell block, man, we make him take his pants off. Don't let him wear no drawers, man, and everybody be screwing him. That shirt, man, them baggy shirts they got him wearing, man, that's their dress.
Wow.
And we got Jamal, man, with a care package on the way from his sis, man, with some lipstick, mascara, eyeshadow, and plastic nails. We gonna girl dude all the way live. We already done made him some jewelry up in the metal department.
Mm.
And then what you see all these boys walking around with their pants belted right below their butts. Look like they about to be turned out in the jail.
Wow.
That gay thing. Yeah, man, you got to do what you got to do, man, when you're doing penitentiary. It's the man thing. No, it ain't no man thing. It's a gay thing.
Wow.
And see, some of those people, if you knew some of the people who were actually in the penitentiary and you had to work with them, like defending them,
Mm-hmm.
it's like Richard Pryor said on one of his joke albums. He's talking about when whatever the white boy is that did that comedy movie with him, one of which was
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
He said, man, all them brothers up in the penitentiary, one thing I got to say, man, thank God they got penitentiaries. See, these folk aren't up in there for playing Robin Hood, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. They're up in there for robbing their broke neighbors, up in there for raping their neighbors' daughters and their neighbors who are female, up in there for selling poison to the whole neighborhood, up in there for shooting up the neighborhood and killing kids, up in there for burning stuff up because they mad about something, hurting somebody in their neighborhood. See, there's parasites. Cannibalistic parasites. Maybe they can become men eventually, but they aren't when they get off in there for the most part. They didn't do anything conscientious. It's just like the first Godfather movie say, well, you don't sell poison in there. Let the niggas get to sell the poison in their community where they live.
Mm.
Sorry for saying that word.
No, it's fine.
It ain't fine with me.
Mm.